The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of cold wind moving through the ruins. Two alien sisters sat close together in a broken iron cage, their bodies weak, their faces pale. The battlefield around them was empty now. The soldiers who captured them had marched away, leaving nothing but smoke and shattered ground. The elder sister held the younger one tightly, whispering soft words. "Stay close to me. Don't be afraid." But fear lived in both their hearts. Their people were gone, their home destroyed, and no one had come to rescue them. They had waited for days, hoping someone, anyone, would appear. But hope was a fragile thing, and it was almost gone. The younger sister, her voice small like a child's breath, asked, "Sister, are we going to die here?" Her eyes were wet with tears. She had tried to be strong, but her small body trembled with hunger and fear. The elder's throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to give comfort, but the truth pressed against her chest like a stone. She bent her head and whispered, "Maybe this is the end." Her words shook, heavy with sadness. "But if it is, we will face it together." The younger one pressed her face against her sister's shoulder, whispering, "Goodbye." Her voice cracked like glass. For a long time they sat there, whispering final words to each other, every breath heavy with despair. The world around them was cruel, and it seemed no one cared. The night grew colder, the stars above sharp and distant, each moment stretched, endless, as if time itself had stopped to watch them suffer. Then, in the stillness, the elder sister lifted her head. Her ears caught something, faint, distant, yet clear. Footsteps. They were slow, uneven, crunching against stone and ash. Her heart raced. Fear flooded her veins. What if it was another soldier? What if they had come back to finish what they started? "Someone is coming," she whispered, her grip on her sister tightening. The younger sister froze, her breath catching. Both pressed their backs against the cage wall, their eyes wide with terror. The sound of steps grew louder, closer. The figure of a man appeared through the smoke. He was tall, his clothes torn, his body marked with wounds. A human. His face was shadowed, his steps heavy. He carried something in his hand. Was it a weapon? The sisters trembled, pressing close together, certain that this was their final moment. The man stopped just a few steps away from the cage. His eyes studied them, not with cruelty, not with coldness, but with something else, something they had not seen in so long. He crouched low, setting down a metal flask. His voice was rough, tired, but strangely gentle. "Water," he said. The elder sister blinked, her heart confused. Why would he give them water? Why would a human stop for them at all? Her instincts screamed not to trust him, but her sister's small hands tugged at her arm, her eyes desperate, thirsty. The human pushed the flask closer, waiting, not forcing. His gaze steady. He did not move to hurt them. He only waited. The sisters looked at each other, caught between fear and hope. The night around them was still, the stars above cold. Their goodbye had already been spoken, but now, perhaps, it was not the end after all. The night stretched on, heavy and cruel. Inside the broken cage, the sisters sat in silence, their hearts pounding after the sudden appearance of the human. The flask of water lay just outside the iron bars, catching the faint light of the moon. The younger sister's lips trembled. She wanted to reach for it, but fear locked her body in place. Her stomach ached from hunger, her throat burned with thirst. She pressed her face against her sister's arm and whispered, "He is watching us." Her words shook like the wind. The elder sister narrowed her eyes, studying the man. He sat on the ground now, leaning against a broken wall. His chest rose and fell slowly, as if even breathing was a heavy task for him. His wounds looked deep, yet he had not cried out. He was silent, only watching. For a long moment, none of them moved. The battlefield around them seemed endless, a graveyard of shattered metal and burned soil. The sisters felt small, trapped in their iron prison while the stranger rested just a few steps away. The younger one could not hold it in anymore. A soft sob slipped from her throat, at first quiet, then stronger. She tried to stop it, but the sound came anyway, echoing through the night like a broken melody. Tears slid down her cheeks, leaving streaks on her dusty skin. The elder sister stroked her hair gently, whispering, "Don't cry, don't let them hear you." But there were no soldiers left nearby, only the human, still sitting in silence. The elder raised her head, her voice sharp and trembling. "Why are you here, human? Why do you watch us?" The man did not answer at once. His eyes looked at the sky for a moment, then returned to them. His voice was low, quiet like the wind. "I heard your whispers." The sisters froze. Their hearts skipped. They had whispered their goodbyes, thinking no one could hear. But he had. The elder's hands tightened on the young Sham. R1's shoulders, fear mixed with confusion. The younger sister's cry broke again, this time louder. She whispered, "Sister, I don't want to die." The sound stabbed into the human's chest. His jaw clenched. He looked at them, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as something else. Fragile lives left to fade. He picked up the flask of water again. This time he stood and stepped closer to the cage. The sisters backed away, pressing themselves against the farthest corner. The bars rattled under their weight. The human crouched, sliding the flask carefully through the gap. He pushed it until it touched the younger one's feet. Her eyes widened. She looked at her sister, waiting for permission. The elder hesitated, fear biting at her, but then she saw the truth in the human's eyes. No cruelty, only weariness, only something almost like kindness. Slowly, carefully, she nodded. The younger sister snatched the flask, her small hands trembling. She raised it to her lips, water spilling down her chin. She drank like she had never tasted water before. Her chest rose and fell fast, relief rushing through her body. The elder's throat tightened. She reached for the flask next, drinking slowly, savoring every drop. When she lowered it, her eyes met the man's. For the first time, she did not see danger there. She saw a question, silent but strong. The human finally spoke again. "You don't have to whisper goodbye." His words were heavy, carrying weight the sisters could not yet understand. The night seemed to pause. The silent cry had turned into something else, a fragile thread of hope. For the first time in many days, the sisters wondered if maybe, just maybe, they were not truly alone. The moon hung low in the sky, silver light falling over the ruined battlefield. The sisters sat in the cage, clutching the empty flask. Their hands still shook from drinking water, their bodies weak but no longer trembling from thirst. Yet their hearts beat faster now, because of him, the human stranger sitting close by. The elder sister watched him carefully. Her eyes searched his every movement, trying to read his purpose. Why had he stopped for them? Why had he given water instead of walking away? No soldier from his kind had ever shown mercy to them before. The man shifted slightly, pressing his back against a broken wall. He winced as pain moved across his face. His shirt was torn, revealing wounds that looked deep. Dried blood painted his skin. He was injured badly, yet he sat calm, breathing slow, watching the stars as if waiting for something. The younger sister whispered, her voice small, "Sister, why does he help us?" Her big eyes stayed fixed on him, confused but filled with wonder. She had never seen a human so close before. The elder tightened her grip on her hand, replying in a low voice, "I don't know, but we must be careful." Suddenly the human turned his gaze back to them. His eyes were sharp, tired, but not cruel. For a moment no one spoke. The silence between them felt heavy. Then he broke it with a single question. "Your names?" The elder stiffened, pulling her sister closer. She did not answer. Her people had been hunted, caged, and silenced. Why should she give him their names? But the younger one, innocent and trusting, whispered softly, "Lyra." Then almost shyly she added, "And she is my sister Arya." The elder's heart sank, fear rushed through her veins, but it was too late. Their names were spoken. The human nodded slowly, as if keeping them safe in his memory. He did not mock them. He did not smile cruelly. He simply said, "I am Danny." The sound of his name hung in the night. Daniel, it was strange, yet simple. The sisters exchanged a quick glance. The human had not come to harm them, at least not yet. Still, Arya's body remained tense, ready to shield Lyra if he made a sudden move. Daniel reached into a small bag by his side. The sisters flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a piece of cloth and tore it in half. He pressed one strip against the wound on his arm, tying it tight. His face twisted with pain, but he made no sound. He was strong, too strong. The younger sister could not hold her words. "You are hurt," she whispered. Her voice carried pity. Daniel glanced at her and gave a small nod. "Yes, but I am alive." His words were calm, steady, like stone. Arya studied him harder now. Her mind raced with questions. Was he a deserter? A lost soldier? A wanderer who had no side left to fight for? His eyes did not carry the coldness of war. They carried something else, something heavy and old. For the first time, Daniel stood. His tall figure cast a shadow over the cage. The sisters shrank back, pressing themselves against the bars. But instead of reaching for them, he placed his hand against the iron lock. His fingers traced it slowly. His eyes darkened. "You should not be here," he said quietly. His voice was rough, almost like a growl. "If soldiers return, they will kill you." The sisters froze. Their hearts thundered. They had whispered goodbye only hours ago, accepting death. And now this human, this stranger named Daniel, was talking of saving them. The younger sister's lips trembled. "Then why? Why don't you leave us?" she asked. Daniel's eyes lifted to hers, steady, unshaken. His answer was simple, spoken like truth carved in stone. "Because no one deserves to die alone." The words fell heavy in the night, stronger than any weapon. The sisters looked at him, hearts shot king with fear and hope. For the first time, the human was not just a stranger. He was something more, a flicker of light in their endless dark. The night pressed heavier around them. The broken cage stood like a skeleton in the ruins. The sisters held each other close, their eyes locked on the human, Daniel. His words still echoed in their minds. No one deserves to die alone. Arya, the elder sister, felt torn. Her heart screamed not to trust him, not to believe in anything he said. Humans were dangerous, cruel, and merciless. She had seen her people hunted and broken. She had lost everything because of them. But when she looked at Daniel, she did not see the same cruelty. She saw a man wounded, tired, yet still standing. Lyra, the younger sister, felt differently. Her small hands clutched the empty flask as if it were a treasure. Her eyes shone with something fragile. Hope, she whispered softly, almost like a secret. Sister, he helped us. Maybe he is different. Arya shook her head quickly, her voice sharp. No, don't trust him. He is human. But even as she said it, her voice cracked. There was doubt in her heart, doubt she did not want to admit. Daniel crouched near the cage again, his gaze steady. His hand brushed the lock once more. It was rusted, old, but strong enough to keep them trapped. He studied it, then looked up at them. Do you want to stay here? His question was calm, simple, but it cut deep. Neither sister answered. Fear held their tongues. If he freed them, what then? Would he take them as captives? Would he hand them to soldiers? Or would he leave them in the wild to die alone? Daniel did not move closer. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a small metal tool. His hands were steady even though blood still stained his shirt. He pushed the tool into the lock, the sound of scraping metal filling the night. The sisters gasped softly, pressing back against the bars. Arya's heart raced. Stop, she whispered, but her voice was weak. Daniel did not stop. His jaw clenched, his eyes farce. Accused, he worked at the lock with quiet determination. Minutes passed. The silence grew heavier with every tick of time. Then, with a sharp click, the lock broke open. The door swung slightly, creaking like a dying breath. The cage that had held them prisoner was no longer sealed. Arya's breath caught. Her mind screamed to run, to stay, to fight all at once. She wrapped her arms tighter around Lyra, but Lyra's eyes widened with tears, her small voice trembling with awe. Sister, we're free. Daniel did not push the door wider. He did not reach in. Instead, he stepped back, giving them space. His voice was low but clear. The choice is yours. Stay in the cage or step out. Arya stared at him, her body frozen with confusion. Why would a human do this? Why give them freedom when he could control them? She searched his face, looking for a trap, but found only exhaustion and honesty. Lyra moved first. Her tiny hands slipped from her sister's grasp. She crawled slowly toward the open door. Her bare feet touched the ground outside the cage. She looked back, her eyes pleading, Sister, come. Arya's heart twisted. Fear gripped her, but so did the memory of their whispered goodbye. She had already accepted death hours ago. Now freedom stood inches away. She took a shaky step forward, then another. Finally, she stepped out, her sister clinging to her side. For the first time in days, they stood outside the cage. The air felt different, heavy but alive. Daniel nodded once, as if satisfied. He turned his eyes toward the dark horizon and muttered, We need to move. Soldiers will return. Arya's lips parted, but no words came. She could not understand this man. Was he savior, enemy, or something else entirely? All she knew was that the cage was behind her now, and in front of her was danger and uncertainty, led by a human stranger. The sisters exchanged a look. Their silo and question was the same. Could they trust him? The night gave no answer, but their hearts already knew. Trust had begun, even if it was only the first fragile step. The iron cage stood empty now, broken and silent under the moon. The sisters stood outside for the first time in days, their legs weak and unsteady. Lyra clung to Arya's arm, her eyes wide with fear, but also shining with relief. Daniel, the human, kept his gaze fixed on the distance. His voice was calm but heavy. We must go. They will return. Arya wanted to argue. Her heart still screamed not to trust him, but the memory of soldiers, the sound of their boots, and the way they laughed when locking her and Lyra away burned too sharp in her mind. She knew Daniel was right. Staying here meant death. Daniel moved first, his steps slow but sure. His injuries made him limp, yet he carried himself like a man who had walked through worse. Arya followed reluctantly, holding Lyra close. The night air felt different outside the cage, colder, sharper, but filled with freedom. Every breath reminded them they were no longer trapped. The ruins stretched far, filled with shadows. Burned machines, shattered walls, and broken flags littered the ground. Each step echoed louder than it should have. Arya's nerves twisted tighter. She glanced behind them again and again, afraid of seeing soldiers emerge from the smoke. Daniel suddenly raised his hand, signaling them to stop. He crouched low, pressing his palm against the dirt. His eyes narrowed, listening. The sisters froze, fear racing through their veins. Then they heard it too. The distant thunder of boots, not one pair, but many. Arya's blood ran cold. Soldiers. They were coming back. Her arms wrapped tighter around Lyra, who whimpered softly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "They're searching already," he muttered. His voice stayed low, steady. We moved through the forest. The forest stood ahead, dark and thick, a wall of trees swaying under the night wind. It looked unwelcoming, but it was their only chance. Daniel moved quickly towards Saw. His steps quiet. The sisters stumbled after him, their feet aching, their hearts pounding. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Branches clawed at their clothes, roots twisted under their feet. Arya stumbled once, nearly falling, but Daniel's strong hand caught her arm, pulling her back up. She froze at his touch, surprised at the steadiness. He let go at once, saying nothing, only continuing forward. Behind them, voices rang through the night, harsh and sharp. Soldiers shouted orders. The sound of weapons clicking filled the air. They were close, too close. Arya's chest burned with fear. Lyra's small breaths came in panicked gasps. Daniel led them down a slope, into the cover of thick bushes. He crouched low, signaling them to do the same. Together they pressed into the shadows, barely breathing. The soldiers' voices grew clearer, boots stomping only a short distance away. Arya held her sister tight, praying they would not be seen. Lyra's tears wet her shoulder. The sound of armored men grew louder, then paused. One voice barked orders, "Search this way." Another replied, "The cage is empty. They escaped." Arya's heart nearly stopped. She buried her face into Lyra's hair, waiting for the inevitable. Daniel's hand pressed firmly against the ground. His eyes burned with focus. His whisper barely reached them, "Stay still." Moments stretched like years. The soldiers' footsteps moved closer, branches snapping under their weight. Arya's breath caught, every part of her trembling. Suddenly a bright light swept across the trees, a soldier's torch scanning the forest. It passed so close Arya could see the man's shadow fall across the bushes. Daniel's hand moved to his belt, his fingers gripping the handle of a small blade. His eyes locked on the soldier. "Ready!" Arya almost cried out, fearing what would happen. But just then, another soldier shouted in the distance, "Tracks go east! Follow!" The men turned, their voices fading as they rushed the other way. The forest grew quiet again. Only the sisters' ragged breaths and Daniel's steady calm filled the silence. Slowly, Daniel rose, his voice low. "We can't stop. They will search until they find you." He glanced at the sisters, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "If you want to live, you stay with me." Arya swallowed hard, her mind still tangled in fear, but she could not deny the truth. The chase had begun, and only this wounded human stood between them and capture. The forest stretched endlessly around them, dark and alive with whispers of the night. The sisters followed Daniel closely, their steps unsteady. Arya's heart raced with every sound, every crack of a twig, every rustle of the wind. Lyra clung to her arm, too tired to ask questions, but her wide eyes kept searching the shadows, afraid that soldiers might leap out at any moment. Daniel walked ahead with careful steps. His shoulders carried weight, his body wounded, yet his movements stayed sharp. He glanced back often, making sure the sisters did not fall too far behind. His face was serious, but there was something steady about it, something that made Lyra keep walking even when her legs ached. Hours seemed to pass, though it had only been a short while. The moon had shifted higher, and a silver light falling through the branches. Finally, Daniel stopped. He raised a hand, signaling silence. His eyes scanned the distance. Then he pointed toward a dark shape half hidden among trees. Arya narrowed her eyes. A small cabin stood there, broken but still standing. Its roof sagged, its windows shattered, but its walls remained. Smoke stains marked the stone as if it had once burned. Daniel moved toward it slowly, checking the ground, listening for danger. When he pushed open the wooden door, it creaked loudly. The sisters froze, their breaths caught, but nothing moved inside. Only silence, dust, and the smell of old wood greeted them. Daniel stepped in first, his knife ready. He scanned every corner before nodding. Safe, for now. Arya hesitated, her feet heavy, but Lyra tugged her arm and whispered, "Please, sister, I can't walk anymore." Her voice cracked with exhaustion. Arya finally led her inside. The cabin was cold but felt like a shield from the outside world. The sisters sank against one wall, holding each other, breathing hard. Daniel lowered himself to the floor opposite them, his movements slow, pain showing in his body now that he allowed himself to rest. He pulled the cloth from his wound, blood still seeping. He tore another strip from his shirt and tied it tighter. Arya watched silently, distrust still burning in her heart. But Lyra whispered, "He's hurt so bad." Arya frowned. "That is his problem," she muttered under her breath, but the words felt weak. She could not erase the image of him breaking their cage, of him carrying them through the dark instead of leaving them behind. Daniel finally leaned back against the wall, his breathing rough but steady. His eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. "You should rest," he said quietly. His voice carried no command, only suggestion. "Soldiers will hunt you, but not tonight, not here." The sisters exchanged a glance. Arya whispered, "Why do you help us?" Her words were sharp, demanding an answer. Daniel's eyes lifted to hers, his gaze unwavering. "Because I have seen enough cages," he said. His tone was heavy with memories he did not explain. The room fell silent. Only the wind outside spoke, whistling through broken boards. The sisters lay close together, Lyra's small body finally relaxing as her eyes closed. Arya stayed awake, her gaze locked on Daniel. She wanted to believe he meant no harm, but her heart still guarded every breath. Time passed, shadows shifting across the cabin walls. Then a sound broke the fragile quiet. Leaves crunching outside, soft but deliberate. Arya stiffened. Her hand clutched Lyra tighter. Daniel's eyes snapped open. His hand went to his knife instantly. The sound came again, closer this time. Heavy steps moving around the cabin walls. Arya's pulse thundered in her ears. Soldiers? Hunters? Or worse? Daniel rose silently, his body tense despite his wounds. He signaled with his hand for silence, his yes sharp in the dim light. The sisters held their breath. Lyra stirred, but Arya pressed a hand over her mouth. Outside, the steps paused right by the broken window. A shadow passed across the faint moonlight. Then another. Daniel gripped his knife tighter, his jaw set. He whispered low, "Stay quiet." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with focus. The sisters trembled, their bodies pressed against the wall. Every second stretched like eternity. The cabin that felt like shelter now felt like a trap. Someone had found them, and the night was not over yet. The cabin walls shook with every sound outside. The sisters clung to each other, their eyes wide with terror. Arya's heart beat so fast it hurt. Lyra's tiny fingers dug into her sister's arm. The soft footsteps outside were too many, too heavy. Whoever they were, they had come prepared. Daniel stood near the window, his knife tight in his hand, his face calm, though his body was tense like a bowstring ready to snap. He signaled the sisters to stay low. His eyes moved between the broken window and the door, calculating every angle. A voice rang outside, deep and sharp. The cage was empty. Tracks lead here, search the place. Arya's blood froze. Soldiers. They had followed them through the forest. She buried her face against Lyra's hair, whispering, "Don't make a sound." The wooden door rattled as a soldier pushed it. The hinges groaned. Daniel's eyes narrowed. His lips pressed together. He waited, silent. Another soldier's shadow crossed the window. A torch flickered, throwing light inside the cabin for a heartbeat. Daniel stepped back into the darkness, unseen. The door burst open with a violent kick. Splinters flew. A soldier stepped inside, armored and armed. His torch lit the room. His eyes landed instantly on the sisters huddled in the corner. Arya's heart screamed. She held Lyra tighter, ready for the end. But before the soldier could shout, Daniel moved. His blade flashed, striking fast and hard. The soldier collapsed with a muffled cry. Daniel dragged the body back, silent and swift. His eyes burned with cold focus. His voice was low. "Stay down." The sound of the struggle reached the others. More boots rushed toward the door. Shadows crowded the broken window. A soldier shouted, "Inside! Now!" They stormed in, weapons raised. The cabin exploded with chaos. Daniel fought like a man possessed. His knife cut through the dark. His fists struck with brutal force. Every move precise, efficient. He fought not like a soldier of an army, but like a survivor with nothing left to lose. Arya watched in shock, her breath caught. She had seen battles before. She had seen men fight, but never like this. Daniel moved like a storm, silent yet deadly. Even wounded, he did not falter. Still, the soldiers were many. Their blades flashed, their boots stomped against the floor. Daniel blocked one strike, then another, but a third soldier swung hard. The blade cut across his side. He grunted, blood spilling. Arya gasped, her body surging forward, but fear rooted her feet. Lyra whimpered, her voice trembling. "He's going to die." Arya shook her head, whispering, "No, not yet." Her eyes locked on Daniel, his jaw clenched, his face pale, but he refused to fall. He shoved the soldier back with raw strength, driving his knife deep into another attacker. The cabin walls echoed with shouts, metal against wood, the crash of bodies. Arya could barely breathe. Every sound was too loud. Every moment stretched too long. Then suddenly silence cut through the chaos. Only the wind outside remained. Daniel stood in the center of the cabin, his chest heaving, his blade dripped with blood. Around him lay 3 soldiers, unmoving. The air smelled of iron and smoke. Daniel's face was pale, sweat running down his skin. He swayed for a moment, then leaned against the wall, gripping his wound. The sisters remained frozen, their hearts pounding. Arya could not look away. Daniel was hurt, bleeding badly. Yet he had fought to protect them. He had killed for them. Daniel's eyes finally lifted, meeting Arya's gaze. His voice was rough, almost breaking. "More will come. We can't stay." He looked toward the sisters, his expression unreadable. "If you want to live, you must move now." Arya's throat tightened. Her fear and distrust battled inside her, but another truth burned sharper. Without him, they would already be dead. She reached for Lyra, pulling her up. Her voice shook. "We fall. Low." Daniel nodded once, pushing himself away from the wall. His steps were heavy but firm. He moved toward the broken door, blood trailing faintly on the floor. Behind him, the sisters followed, their trust growing, fragile but real. The night waited outside, darker than ever. The enemy had struck, but the fight was not over. The night swallowed them again as they left the cabin behind. Smoke from torches still lingered in the air, and the ground was stained with blood. Daniel led the way with slow but steady steps, his hand pressed against the wound on his side. The sisters followed close, their small feet crunching on leaves and dirt. Arya's mind was a storm. She had seen him fight. She had seen him bleed for them, yet she still could not understand. Why would a human, a man she was taught to hate and fear, risk his life for 2 alien sisters left to die in a cage? Lyra walked beside her, holding her hand. Her voice trembled, but carried wonder. "He saved us, sister. He really saved us." Her eyes looked at Daniel with something close to admiration. Arya squeezed her hand, whispering, "Be careful. Don't trust so easily." But her own voice lacked strength. Daniel suddenly stopped. He leaned against a tree, his breaths rough and heavy. His face pale under the moonlight. Sweat dripped from his brow. Arya's heart tightened despite herself. She wanted to stay distant, but the sight of his pain cut into her. Lyra tugged at her sister's arm, whispering urgently, "He's hurt. We must help." Without waiting, the young one stepped forward. Her small hands reached for Daniel's arm. "Sit, please," she said softly. Daniel looked down at her, surprised. His lips curved into the faintest smile before he lowered himself to the ground. Arya knelt slowly, her distrust battling with something new rising inside her. She tore a piece of her dress, her fingers trembling as she pressed the cloth against Daniel's wound. He flinched but did not push her away. His voice came rough but calm. "You don't have to." Her eyes narrowed. "If you fall, we fall too," she whispered. Her words sharper than she intended. Daniel met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. For a moment, the world felt still. Lyra sat close, her small face worried. "You fight like 10 men, she said with awe. Daniel chuckled weakly, shaking his head. "I fight because I must, not because I want to." His voice carried weight, sorrow hidden beneath. The sisters exchanged a look, realizing his battles were not only with soldiers but with ghosts from his past. Arya's heart softened slightly, though she quickly hid it. She finished tightening the cloth around his wound and pulled her hand back. "There," she muttered. "You won't bleed out tonight." Daniel's eyes stayed on her for a long moment, his lips parted as if to thank her, but he only nodded once, rising slowly to his feet. The 3 of them moved again, deeper into the forest. Hours passed. The danger of soldiers still lingered, but within their small group something began to change. Lyra spoke softly to Daniel as they walked, asking questions about the stars, about his world. Daniel answered in few words, but his tone was never harsh. He spoke with patience. Arya stayed quiet, listening. Her distrust remained, yet her steps grew lighter. She realized that for the first time in years, she was not carrying the burden alone. Someone else walked beside her, someone who had already proven he would fight for them. When dawn touched the horizon with pale light, they found a clearing by a stream. The sound of water brought relief. Lyra ran to it eagerly, cupping her hands to drink. Arya watched her, then looked at Daniel. He stood still, his eyes on the horizon, his face unreadable. Finally, she asked, her voice breaking the silence. "Why us?" Her eyes searched his. "Why save us, when you could have walked away?" Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at her, his voice low and steady. "Because once I lost someone I should have saved, I will not make that mistake again." The words struck her like a blade. Arya's chest tightened. She wanted to ask more, but she could see the pain in his eyes. She stayed silent, only lowering her gaze. Lyra returned with water, smiling faintly. For a moment, the 3 of them sat together by the stream, tired, wounded but alive. Something unspoken connected them, fragile yet strong. The bond had begun to grow. The sun had risen weakly, its pale light falling across the forest. For a short while, the sisters felt safe. Lyra splashed her hands in the stream. Arya sat close by, her eyes never leaving Daniel. He stood near the edge of the clearing, his hand resting on the hilt of his knife, his body tense. He was not resting. He was waiting. Arya sensed it too. The silence of the forest was wrong, too heavy, too still. Birds did not sing. The wind carried only unease. She rose slowly, her heart beating fast. "They're coming, aren't they?" she whispered. Daniel's eyes flicked to her, steady, grim. "Yes." Lyra froze, her small hands dripping with water. "Again?" Her voice shook. Daniel nodded. His face hardened. "This time they bring more men." The sisters' stomachs sank. Their tired bodies had little strength left. Arya pulled Lyra close, whispering, "Stay behind me." But her voice trembled because she knew she could not protect them both against soldiers. Her only hope was the man who had already bled for them. The sound came slowly at first, the crunch of boots, the clink of weapons, then louder. Surrounding the clearing, shadows moved between trees, armored figures closing in, torches lit even in daylight. Their leader's voice boomed, "The fugitives are here. Capture them. Kill the human if he resists." Daniel's jaw clenched. He pulled the knife from his belt, his other hand gripping a broken spear he had taken from the cabin. His body swayed slightly from blood loss, but his eyes burned bright. Arya could see it, the fire of a man who refused to fall. The soldiers stepped into the clearing, a dozen at least. Weapons gleamed, shields raised. They moved like a wave ready to drown them. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between the sisters and the enemy. His voice cut through the chaos, low but steady. "You want them? You'll have to go through me." Arya's breath caught. She wanted to pull him back, to beg him not to fight, but no words left her mouth. Lyra clutched her arm, whispering, "He's going to die." Arya shook her head, her own voice breaking. "Not yet." The first soldier charged. Daniel met him with a strike of his spear. The wood cracked against armor. The soldier fell. Daniel spun, his knife cutting another across the throat. Blood sprayed. Chaos erupted. The clearing exploded with the clash of steel. Daniel moved like a storm, his body weak but his will unbreakable. He blocked, struck, and turned with precision. His wounds reopened, blood staining his clothes, but still he stood. The sisters watched in terror and awe. Daniel fought against many, and each time he fell to his knees, he rose again. His voice roared once through gritted teeth, "You will not take them!" But the soldiers pressed harder. Blades slashed his arms, spears struck his side. His body staggered, his face pale. Arya cried out, "Daniel!" She wanted to run to him, but fear held her back. Lyra sobbed into her shoulder. At last, Daniel fell to one knee, surrounded, his knife heavy in his hand. The soldiers closed in. Their leader raised a blade. "End him," he ordered. Something inside Arya broke. She pushed Lyra behind her and shouted, "No!" Her voice echoed through the clearing. For the first time, she stepped forward, her small body between the soldiers and Daniel. Her hands shook, but her eyes blazed. "If you kill him, you kill us too." The soldiers paused, confused. The leader sneered, "Why protect a human?" Arya's chest rose and fell with fury. "Because he is not like you. He fights for us, not against us." In that moment, Daniel forced himself up, blood dripping, his voice a growl. "She's right." He raised his knife one last time, his body trembling, but his spirit unbroken. "You'll have to kill me to touch them." The clearing held its breath. Soldiers circled. The sisters clung to each other. Daniel stood tall despite his broken body. The final stand had begun. The clearing trembled with silence. Soldiers circled, weapons raised. Daniel stood bleeding and broken, yet still on his feet. Arya stood beside him, her small frame shaking but unyielding. Lyra clung to her sister's arm, tears streaking her dirt-stained face. The leader of the soldiers sneered, his blade glinting in the pale sun. "You think you can stand against us? One dying man and two frightened girls?" His voice echoed cruelly through the trees. Daniel gritted his teeth, his chest rising and falling like thunder. His hand trembled on the knife, but his eyes burned with fire. Before the soldiers could advance, Daniel lunged forward. His blade clashed with steel, sparks flying. His body screamed with pain, but he fought with the strength of his will. Arya cried out his name, her heart tearing as she watched him stand against a storm. Lyra sobbed, pressing her face against Arya's arm, whispering, "He can't win, he can't win." But Daniel refused to fall. Each strike he gave, each block he forced, was not for himself. It was for them, for the sisters he refused to see chained again. He roared as he drove his knife into another soldier's chest, pulling it free with shaking hands. The soldiers surged again, too many, too strong. Daniel stumbled, his knee hitting the ground, his vision blurred, blood running down his side. Arya could not bear it any longer. She stepped forward, her voice fierce and sharp. "Stop!" The soldiers froze for a moment, shocked by the fire in her tone. Arya raised her arms, her voice trembling but strong. "You want us alive, don't you? That's why you caged us. That's why you hunt us. If you kill him, you lose us too." Her words struck deep. The leader's face twisted in frustration. He hesitated, lowering his blade slightly. Daniel forced himself back to his feet, his body shaking. His voice was hoarse but unbroken. "They are under my protection now. If you want them, you'll have to kill me first." At that moment, the forest erupted with a new sound. Shouts, heavy boots, but not the same soldiers. From the trees, another group appeared. Their armor carried different colors: allies, rebels, survivors of the war. Their leader's voice thundered, "Enough! Step away from them!" The soldiers turned in shock. Their leader snarled, but before he could give an order, arrows flew, cutting through the air. Men fell, chaos spread. The sisters clung to each other, watching as the battle shifted. Daniel swayed, almost falling, but Arya grabbed his arm, holding him steady. "Stay with us," she begged, her voice breaking. Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I told you," he whispered, "you won't die alone." The rebel forces stormed the clearing, overwhelming the soldiers. Within moments, the enemy began to fall back, their leader cursing as he fled into the trees. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The clearing was littered with silence once again. Daniel collapsed to his knees. His knife slipped from his hand. Arya and Lyra rushed to his side, their hands gripping his shoulders. Tears fell freely down Arya's face. "Don't you dare leave us now," she whispered fiercely. The rebel leader approached, his voice firm but kind. "We'll take you to safety. You're not alone anymore." His men began tending to Daniel's wounds, wrapping cloth tightly around his side. Arya and Lyra never let go of him. As the sun rose higher, light spilled across the clearing. The sisters breathed in deeply, feeling the weight of fear lift slowly from their chests. Daniel, though weak, opened his eyes and looked at them. His voice was faint but steady. "You're free now." Arya held his hand tightly, her voice soft but certain. "No, we are not free without you." Lyra nodded quickly, pressing close. "You're with us now forever." For the first time in what felt like endless darkness, hope glowed bright. The cage was behind them. The fear was behind them. Together they stepped into the dawn, not as prisoners, not as Strand,